Thank you, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. We have a huge community here. I'm sure you guys all know this. But we ourselves are all based in New York, so we get to just admire you from afar usually. I am part of the international team at Kickstarter, so I do get to travel quite a bit. And I'm offering you that as a caveat also because I'm not the games expert at Kickstarter. The games expert is a guy named Luke Crane. We spent 2 hours yesterday going over games projects together. I've also played games with Luke for years now and follow the category avidly through his eyes all the time, so hopefully I will do an adequate job. So I'm going to tell you all the secrets, right? I do want to tell you a little bit about sort of the big picture of who we are and what we do, especially since so many of you probably are familiar with us specifically through the tabletop lens. And I think this is beautiful. On the biggest possible level, Kickstarter is a place where people come to create something to share with others. So that might mean a big commercial product, or it might mean something you make for your kids, right? Apparently this is a great idea. We've been around for a little over 5 years now, and these are our stats as of today. There's been over 69,000 projects funded on the site by over nearly 7 million people. There's been $1.3 billion pledged. And then this number down here, this is one that particularly pertains to you guys. We've had over 2 million people pledge to more than one project. In the games category, this is like very typical. I don't remember what the stat is for games in particular, but almost everyone is a repeat creator in the games category. So you are often the community that we talk a lot about. People have backed projects from all around the world. So right now Kickstarter operates in the US and the UK and Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, soon some other countries. But people can back a project from anywhere in the world. So as you know, many of you here, I'm sure, who here has backed a project, given money to a project? Exactly, right, amazing. So you are represented in this number. This is the repeat backers thing I was talking about. So most of the money, while only like a third of backers on the site have pledged to more than one project, 60% of the dollars come from these people. It is the community, it is the people who browse the site and discover projects, who backed one game and then came back to back another. These are the people that pledge the majority of dollars on Kickstarter, and this is a growing number. It's pretty exciting. This is the thing I wanted to point out to you, is like there's a wide variety of categories. We currently have 15, games is one. Games is the biggest in terms of dollars pledged, and I know that's what you guys want to hear about from me today. So I'm going to focus on games. One thing that Luke told me is that you guys really like numbers, so I pulled some numbers for the games category. So of that 1.3 billion pledge total, 269 million of it come from games. And there's been relatively few projects funded overall, just over 4,000. So people are pledging lots of money to games projects. And then drilling down a little deeper, and this is just for you, this is not available just by going to the site. The tabletop games category you can see is huge within that. So that's $117 million and just over half of all the projects on the site. So this is what you guys are probably familiar with. This all really began in sort of the bridge between 2012 and 2013. In 2012, there was about $18 million pledged to tabletop. And then by the end of 2013, there were $52 million pledged. So it was a huge year. It was an exciting year, and this is when everything changed. This is when you started going to gaming conventions, and everywhere you looked, someone was demoing something that they funded on Kickstarter, or someone had a live project that they were funding on Kickstarter. So this Kickstarter became the conduit, the way for people in the games community to test an idea, put it out there, and see if they could build a following around it. So some of those secrets I promised you. You guys all know about the all or nothing funding model, I assume, but just in case you don't. Kickstarter is unique and special in that we require that you set a funding goal and meet that funding goal. Most often people, of course, meet that funding goal and well surpass it. But this is from a project live right now. I screenshotted this earlier today. You can see they have a goal of $16,500. They've raised $14,573. This is Canadian dollars. So they're about 2K shy of their goal. They have 4 days left to go and 258 backers. So if for some reason in the next 4 days They don't raise that next $2,000. Those 258 people are not, their credit cards are not charged. Everyone walks away, it's like nothing ever happened. This is incredibly powerful. This is why those big dollar numbers I showed you earlier, that's why those exist. The short answer, people always like, why do you require this? Why can't I just raise some money? The short answer is that it works. People raise lots of money on Kickstarter because it is a compelling and exciting place to raise money. You set a goal, you reach it, you surpass it, it's exciting, it's a story to tell, the clock is counting down, you see pages like this, and you know that there's going to be a huge bump at the end. There's no way these people are not going to reach their goal and surpass it. And I think maybe more importantly, maybe, for us in the long term, as people who make things, it's less risk, right? So if it's going to cost you, again, to go back to the slide, if it's going to cost you $16,500 to make your game and get it out in the world, then you better raise $16,500. Otherwise, you're in kind of a crappy position. How are you going to make the game? How are you going to fulfill on all those promises you made to your backers? So this is a trust. This is a social contract between you guys, the creators, and then the people who are excited about what you're doing. So some more stats behind that exciting fact. 90% of the dollars pledged on Kickstarter goes to successfully funded projects. What that means is that when a project launches, if it gets some money, it usually will succeed. So we've seen that when a project reaches just 20% of its funding goal, it succeeds over 80% of the time. So this is the all or nothing funding model at work. We call this the tipping point. A little less than half of projects reach their funding goal on Kickstarter. Tabletop is actually more successful with nearly a 51% success rate. Oh, sorry, actually I lied, it's a 52% success rate. So this is one of the more successful categories on the site. More successful than video games by far. So I wanted to just highlight a few projects for you guys and show you and talk a little bit about how they did it and what they did. So this has been a very popular game that's been going around. I actually just played this for the first time last week. Has anyone played this game? Strangely fun. I was scolded for not being like strategic enough, and I thought I was like supposed to be a spy, but apparently I was supposed to be running the numbers. But this is an example of just a really simple card game, something with really basic rules. They set a very modest goal, $10,000, because really there's not a lot here. It's basically a deck of cards and some little plastic pieces. You don't need a lot to play this game. But they were able to reach these enormous numbers, nearly 8,000 backers, $254,000, because they did one thing and they did it really well, which was to demo the project early. I know you guys are all here demoing games and trying games, and we've just heard a lot about that concept. This holds true on Kickstarter more than anywhere else. We've seen pretty consistently that when people don't demo their games, that they usually fail. This is another sort of favorite story of mine. I happen to know these guys. I was in St. Louis where they live a few years ago, and we met at a bar randomly, and then they said, do you want to come to our warehouse? And I was like, sure. To see their games, which is what I did. So these guys have actually run 5 projects on Kickstarter. This is an example of a game company that has launched on Kickstarter. It continues to use this site as a place to launch new games into the world. That is not to say they're not still demoing the games. That's not to say that they don't go out to every convention and have a booth and talk to people and continue to build fans and build engagement and excitement around what they're doing. But when they're ready to go, they always bring it here. So this is an incredible example of a company that got its start using the community on Kickstarter as a leverage point. Another incredible thing, and this is something I learned in the warehouse that day, is that they also help other game makers get their games out into the world. So St. Louis, for those of you who don't know American geography, why would you, is located on the Mississippi River, which is apparently an incredible shipping point. So they work with game developers who've designed a game to get their shipments in from China and distribute them around the world. So they've actually built a whole business backend for the independent game design community to help them get their games out in the world, because not everyone wants to be a distributor, right? This is an RPG game. This is one that Luke wanted me to share with you guys. This is a 2-time project creator. You can see this project that he just ran this past March. It raised over $75,000 from about 2,000 people. You can see he also ran one back, when was that? In 2012. that raised just over $8,000 from just over 200 people. So this is incredible. What happened here? He did one project on Kickstarter. He used that the excitement, the momentum, the energy behind it, continued to talk with his fans. This is so important. So when you launch a project on Kickstarter, Luke actually said something really smart to me yesterday. He said, one of the last things you want to do is ask for money. So you go out into the world, you demo your game, you get excitement. Then when you have a community behind you, you launch your project. You don't stop talking then. You continue to talk to people. You continue to take sometimes intense feedback, but that's really powerful, right? So you learn about your game, you learn about it through this community that you develop on Kickstarter, you develop a loyal following. You then, if you want to come back and do it again, if you've been doing that all along, if you've kept that conversation going, you have the potential to do something like this, which is increase your audience by tenfold and your funding by nearly that, right? Okay, and then it wouldn't be fair if I didn't talk about miniatures. This is just such a giant thing. This was something though that this is really interesting, especially following the talk that we just got. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know Sandy Peterson. So this was the first game he launched. It was back in 2012. He launched it. He had a $300,000 goal. He said, I'm Sandy Peterson. I'm going to raise $300,000. He got to about $25,000 and then never got past that. And what happened was, he is well known, people like him, but the project itself, the game that he designed here, the one he'd mocked out to get people excited about, there wasn't much here. It was kind of like empty. No one was excited. No one could follow the story. No one understood what it was that they were supposed to be doing. So he got 533 backers. He then went back, took that experience of that failure, right? Learned from it, continued to work, riffed on his original idea, and actually changed it, relaunched it with a much more like thorough, thoughtful approach. Really, if you go to this project page and look at the presentation, look at the images, look at the demos, look at the videos, this is a real, like, true demo right here, and you can see it worked out for him. And then I just added these 3 slides in, inspired by the last talk. I'm sure a lot of you, are you guys here familiar with Cards Against Humanity? Yeah, okay. Just making sure. So what a lot of people don't know is their Kickstarter project only raised $15,000. It was tiny. It was back in 2011, and this was something they'd been doing, and it was a party game that they'd made for themselves. They're like, we're nerdy dudes. We like to tell jokes. When we go to parties, we just want to tell dirty jokes. So they'd made this game basically for themselves. They were spreading the jokes online. People were passing them around. It was kind of just this informal party game. And then they thought it'd be really cool to make a deck of cards, like a real physical deck of cards, and make it a real game. So basically the proposal was, pledge to this project and we'll send you an actual legit deck of cards. Wouldn't that be so cool? They had no idea what they were putting out into the world, even with this project. They have this amazing photo. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Max Temkin talk about this, but they have this amazing photo with this like truck just filled with Cards Against Humanity. And then the next photo is they try to put it all in Max's car, which is then sunk onto the ground. They just did not know what they were doing. But this was the first iteration of that game. It was just for their friends, the people who would play the game with them. Max has continued this approach. This approach has really inspired him as a game designer. He recently, with a bunch of friends, collected all the sort of different rules around Werewolf, sat down with some data scientists and actually tried to figure out what makes a lot of sense with this game, and then made a limited edition deck. It was only available through this Kickstarter project. He asked his favorite illustrator to illustrate it. He asked his favorite, like his favorite videographer to make the video with him. He just did it with his community. And then finally, I have to put this up here since I've talked about him so much. This is Luke's most recent project he did on Kickstarter, and it's like a perfect example of this. So it's a 2-player board game. It's really simple, straightforward. It was for fans of people who were really into this comic mouse guard, which I didn't know about, but I learned about through this Kickstarter project. So him and the author designed the game, hung out with their friends, tested it a bunch, and basically just were like, let's throw it up there and see what happens. It was incredibly successful, and it was really because it was for a fan community, and it was with a fan community in a way, right? So the summary of those tips that I hope I've done a good job relating to you, which was start early with those demos. The community you bring with you will kickstart your project, not to use that word, but they will really get you rolling and make sure that even if you don't have a huge sort of professional game community, if people don't really know you as a game designer, those people that have played your game and are excited about you, they will get you rolling, they will start that buzz for you. Asking for money should be one of the last things you do. Again, when you launch your Kickstarter, it shouldn't be the first someone is hearing from you. Embrace the community that you find online. They're going to ask you lots of hard questions. I know that you guys are really good at this anyway. Just know that, of course, when you do it on the internet, it's a lot louder and more insistent. Kickstarter is an opportunity to find those like strange people, the strange 10 people who really care about what you're doing and really connect with them and get their feedback. And then finally, and I showed a couple examples of this, not reaching your funding goal does not equal failure. It's an opportunity to learn, go back to the drawing board and try again. That's it.